Alright, so welcome back to the fifth installment of the DIY RPM display video series, and this video is kinda a conclusion and the finishing part of the project. So right now I'm going to play a little clip of the device actually running inside the car. Also, this shows the problems we have with the device.
Alright guys, so as you can see, I've hooked everything up. It's obviously not permanent as it is, it's just to test it out. But there it is. Sorry, I had a little cut right there. I forgot to plug in the actual sensor value, but as you can see, it works. Quite nice, but for example right now, well, sometimes it's stuck a little and it only gets worse the longer the program runs, so not exactly ideal. Also have to get these windows freed up because I have to move the car out. So yeah, that's the RPM display. Because it's icy outside and my tires are bad, I can't really do a test drive. But as soon as the weather gets better, I do a test drive of this whole thing. But yeah, it works, but it's not perfect. I also have to hide all this mess. This is the 5-volt converter from the original navigation system, and I also use it to power the Arduino. So I have to find a proper enclosure for this and properly install it right here, and the Arduino has to be put down right there, and the proper connections and everything. And then I think I'm going to leave it like that until I get the rest of the sensors and until I get a better plan. Because as you can see, it works, but it's kind of slow. Typical Windows. It just stops everything and nothing works for a minute or so, and then it continues. So it's really odd. I have a few ideas why that can be, but not really something I want to take time to try to resolve, since there are probably better methods using a Arduino and a Bluetooth device and a Android tablet. So, but that's that for now. Now, as you can see, it does this thing where it completely stuck with wrong values, and obviously I'm not doing 7000 RPMs, but it's showing 7000 RPMs. It's completely stuck, and I don't really know why it does that, but yeah, it's not really working ideal. We restart it, for example. No. Oh yes, yeah, it's back. But it's still, we do below 7000 RPM and below 1000 RPM, I mean, and we do the 1200 right now on this thing. So now it does this thing where it's stuck on some values, and sometimes it updates and sometimes it doesn't. So I don't believe it's a problem with the Arduino, because it's continuously sending the values out, and well, no, I can't show you right now, but I'm pretty sure the Arduino sends the correct value, so it's a problem with the Windows program itself. So yeah, kind of success, kind of fail. We'll see what I do in the future. So thanks for watching and have a wonderful day.
So now that you saw this clip, I'm going to go over the final code as it is right now. So I didn't change much right here, but I completely got rid of the get up, startup acknowledge. I mean, it's still there, but it doesn't get called anymore. I also had to use two timers because I can't receive the serial data per serial port 1 read line and put it into a text box or label or any sort of control in the same subroutine. For some reason that doesn't work on the Windows CE device. So on this timer we receive the data, and on this timer we are then compute the value or do the other stuff. On the button thing, I don't think I did change anything after the last video, but I think the buttons are a big performance killer with those for loops. I'm pretty sure if I would remove the buttons it would run better, and I might try that, but I haven't at the moment. I didn't change very much else. I changed the timer interval to 50 milliseconds, but I think it's still a bit too much. Maybe I have to go even lower because of the device crashing. I also added those two, but I don't know if they have any effect on the Windows CE device, since it did work without them, so I don't think I actually need them. But I found some tutorials online and they all use these imports, so I have used them. So this is the basic code right now, and as you can see I have another button to close the window, and the disconnect button, if I click it, is now opening the serial port, so the serial port doesn't open automatically anymore if I start the form 1. So right here is the serial port opening. Other than that, the code is pretty much as it was in the last video, and as you just saw in the clip, it does work, but it kinda crashes. So now let's just have a quick look on the Arduino code. It is really easy. So we have just defined the input pin for the interrupt, and in this case pin 3, because on the Arduino Nano only 2 and 3 are valid interrupt pins. Then we have a value for the last milliseconds and a value for the pulse length. With those two values we calculate the RPM, and we store them in the final RPM value, and this is the RX we add in front of the serial string, so we know it's RPM and the splitter. So this stuff is only for debug mode, we don't really need that. So opening the serial port, we use a port rate of 38,400, and this LED blinking stuff is just for debug reasons, to see that the thing actually fires up. Here we have to attach the interrupt, and the interrupt has to be pin mode input, otherwise it doesn't work, at least not for a falling pulse. And yeah, falling means that the interrupt triggers if the voltage falls down from 5 volts to 0. And here is the name of the function, because so here's the RPM pulse function, and in the RPM pulse function we get the RPM pulse length, and that is millis times minus last milliseconds. So each time a pulse hits, we save the millis, the current milliseconds, since the program has started, in the last milliseconds value, and each time the next pulse hits, it's obviously going to subtract this, and that gives the length of the pulse, meaning the length since the last time the voltage did fall to 0. So out of that we calculate the final RPM, and that is basically 1000 divided by RPM pulse length, because there are 1000 milliseconds in 1 second. So we get the amount of pulses within 1 second, and then we have to time that take the time 60 because a minute has 60 seconds, and that would make the pulses we get per minute, and we have to divide that by 2 to get the revolutions per minute, since the ignition signal has 2 pulses per revolution, since ignition fires 2 times per revolution. And this is just for debug reasons. We write the LED on high to see that the interrupt actually triggered, and also that is also just to test, so that will run the RPM increase decrease that we had on the last video to show the program. And here we just add the, first of all we clear the print string by assigning the RX string to it, and then we add the final RPM value to the print string, and it's the minimum value between final RPM and 7000, so it doesn't go over 7000, also a maximum between that and 0, so we can't have any negative numbers. That is just so we don't have any problems in the Windows CE program later. And obviously then we print the string to the serial port. We use print line, so we can use read line on the Visual Basic program later. And this delay here is very important. It's quite a bit low. I think we could make it even higher, because otherwise it's just going to spam the device serial buffer. And there is something I just remembered I have to show you also, and that is right here on the receive function where you read the line. We also do serial port discard in buffer, meaning everything in the buffer at this point gets deleted, because the Arduino is spamming serial data way faster into the serial buffer than the Windows CE device can read it. And sometimes if the Windows CE device has a problem catching up, gets even slower, and then the input buffer gets even larger, and this is just a chain reaction. So each time we read this, we just delete every other thing. So basically we read the oldest entry in the buffer and delete all the new entries, which isn't ideal, but it works since well, obviously it works since it runs often enough, so even the oldest value isn't that old that we could notice a difference. So I'm pretty sure this discarding buffer does work, because it did actually run way better after I did it. Before I did that, it basically was so behind that I could unplug the Arduino and it would run for several minutes out of the serial input buffer without even noticing that there isn't any new data. So yeah, it got quite backed up, so this is a very important part. Other than that, I think that is the basic idea of the code, and if you want to use this for your own, you probably have to make some changes, or you have to have a Windows CE device with much better performance, which is, I don't think, very probably most Windows CE devices have a terrible performance, since it's such an old system. It doesn't get used on devices that would run with Android, for example. So yeah, if you want to use this, you have to make a few adjustments to get better performance, or maybe there is a big bug somewhere that kills performance, I don't know. As I said, I'm not a professional in Visual Basic programming. So this is the conclusion of the video. If the weather gets better, I might do a actual driving video of this whole thing, but other than that, that's the conclusion of the project. And I don't know if it's a win or a fail. It's kind of both, but a win in that we finished it and that it kind of works, but a fail that it doesn't really work, and yeah, doesn't make much sense to do. So if I had known beforehand, that it doesn't work like I wanted it to work, and that it is that slow, I wouldn't even have started. But now that I did this thing, I learned a few things, and on the next project we can use that learned knowledge to make it better, right? So thank you very much for watching and have a wonderful day.